So here, when we talk of research methodology, it's the umbrella term. We're looking at the bigger picture. And when we're talking of research design, it's a specific way by which we want to do research. And research methods, it's the techniques and tools and procedures. So they are related, but not the same. Okay, they are components of research, but they're not the same. Okay, research methodology, we're looking at the big picture. Okay, it's like an eagle's view, a bird's eye view of the whole field. Whereas research design, we are deciding in which way are we going to conduct the research. And research method, we're looking at the actual manual work or the computer work that has to be done. So these are three different components of research. So if you can see, one is the big picture, the second is we decide to do one way or the other, and the third one is the detailed work that has to be done. Okay, so research methodology would include research philosophy, which is a whole course by itself. What are the different ontologies, epistemology, logic, linguistic behind conducting research? You have the materialist ontology, and then the dialectical ontology, you have the idealist ontology, and so on and so forth. And for epistemology, there is a priori and a posteriori. Paradigms, there are four major paradigms of research. So methodology looking at how you would proceed. Do you start with the hypothesis? Then your approach is hypothetical deductive model. And, if you want to start with the data and develop and produce a theory, then that is a posteriori. And you're working on the creation of grounded theory. You're very different. And you look at why a certain thing happens and what is out there. And it's more theoretical and in big words, in big terms. Whereas research design is looking at the detailed plan. How would you conduct the research? When? And it's very solid. You really have something to measure. But method, you're looking at the procedure. How would you actually go out and do your research? Okay, so here, this is one way by which research vocabulary is developed further. You have philosophy. There are four major research paradigms: behavioralism, phenomenology, critical humanism, and also radical structuralism. That's the four major philosophy of research. And approaches, it would be a posteriori or a priori research. Strategies, are you involved in action research, in using secondary sources, or looking at one case, such as Harvard Business School uses the case study approach. Imagine Harvard does not look at metadata, rather it looks at one case and looking at it deeply and coming up with a journal article from which we can learn. Then you have field research, and then quantitative experimental research, grounded theory, and also the use of questionnaires. And choices, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. And time horizon, are we looking at one given moment in time, or are we looking at over a period of time? Usually, quantitative research go over 30 years of record for it to be considered as valid for quantitative generalization of macro studies. And then techniques and procedures, that's what we call as research methods and research data analysis. Okay, so the deeper level would be the ontology. How do we see the world? Do we start with an idea? For example, we say, of course, God exists. That is called the idealist view. You start with a preposition, whereas the other approach is, well, let's see what's out there. I see nature first, then I say, let's find out in nature and then make a conclusion from what we see out there. So it's a materialist point of view, a very different way of doing research. Second approach, or second level, is looking at methodology. So we're looking at why are we using this method, this framework of looking at the world instead of the other. Whereas in research design, the third level, we have a concrete plan. Then epistemology is our way by which we look at the world. And methods would be the specific techniques. Okay, so here are, excuse me, some vocabulary of research. I won't go over there. So this is a research methodology. It's a bigger picture. Uh, Research methodology is the bigger picture. We're looking at the philosophy, the paradigm to begin with. Okay, and there are in the literature more or less six major research philosophy methodology. Excuse me: qualitative research, quantitative research, mixed methods, historical research. It's not considered qualitative because you're not looking at a given phenomenon here and now, but you're looking at archival data, things which are already written a long time ago. You're going back to the secondary sources or primary sources, meaning people who have actually traveled the world and have recorded their voyages. And action research is you're doing a specific thing to bring about change. Oftentimes, for education, it's in the classroom. There's also community action research. And then grounded theory is you don't use theory at all. In fact, you're looking at the plethora of data out there and you are constructing a theory or a theory will emerge. So that's the difference between qualitative and the other types of research, which are not quantitative. Okay, so here we are. We can see the different types. And research design. Many authors in research would say the major research designs include the experimental research design, oftentimes in medicine, in dentistry, in nursing, and in the biological sciences, in chemistry, in physics, and in engineering. Case study is used in all areas, including business. The business field uses case study a lot, but also in the social sciences. And then longitudinal studies would look at a given phenomenon, for example, economic development. So you look at the economic development of India through the years, during the British colonial times to early independence, then to the period of neoliberal capitalism, and then to the BRICS period. So trying to look for trends. Are there changes, and in what areas are the changes? From the British colonial period to early independence, then to the neoliberal period, and then to the emerging BRICS era where India is a major player. So that's the longitudinal study. Cross-sectional is looking at the given point in time. Like right now, how does India navigate between or among the US, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, China, and Russia? So in a given time, how does India relate to all of these countries and even France? Okay, so what are the relationship, the diplomatic relationship, economic relationship, military relationship of India with the superpowers and the major powers in the world? That is cross-sectional. And there are others, but these are the major ones which I've underscored are the major research design. Okay, so here we are. And for quantitative and qualitative research, sometimes you have mixed methods. One would be concurrent, one would be one done after the other, quantitative first and then qualitative, or qualitative and then quantitative, or concurrent, conducted at the same time. So you have three major ways by which research is done. And for research method, it's sometimes called data collection method. It's sometimes called data gathering methods. So these are synonyms. You have content analysis, ethnography, focus group, interview, participant observation, questionnaire, secondary data, and survey research. So these are 8 of the major methods, research methods. And when you say ethnography, you are immersed in a given phenomenon. For example, if you are studying Coca-Cola plant or Pepsi-Cola plant or a mango juice factory, you go inside the factory and see how the workers are involved in the production of the mango juice. Or you go to the office of the CEO and do shadow work and follow the CEO throughout the day and see what the CEO is doing throughout the day, maybe for an extended period of time, like 1 week. So you are immersing yourself in a given context. In the factory, and the CEO's office, or in the villages. Okay? You want to see how, let's say, producing the golden rice affected positively or negatively the farmers in rural India. Okay? Thus, the use of golden rice involved the use of chemical fertilizers, a chemical pesticide, or can the farmers go on and just use regular organic waste from cow dung or human waste? Okay, and how does it affect the livelihood of the farmers in the villages? So you can do this in all fields. In fact, in big companies, clothes, fast fashion companies like Uniqlo or Zara or H&M, the big clothes company, they in fact follow trendy students, young people who make up their own fashion. And they go to their houses, they identify them in the streets, and then talk with them and ask them, how do you make up your own fashion? Okay? Because some young people produce their own unique ways of dressing up. And companies want to know, what is this fashion? From there, they're able to produce new lines of clothing. In fact, this is exploiting uh, the inventiveness, the creativity of the young people without paying them. They just go to their houses, they check their wardrobe, their closet, they see how they dress up and ask them, how do you mix and match your clothes? This is a very effective tool in business. And then they do marketing based on the trend that they discover from young kids, fashionable kids. Okay. Content analysis is you're looking at a lot of documents, pictures, videos, and in fact, you try to find out the patterns. And it involves counting words. For example, how many times a person mentions the word China, or how many times a person mentions the perpetrator. And they say 20 times they mention China, 5 times they mention China, and 28 times they mention the USA. So content analysis will involve counting. You can use software for that, or you can manually count and also develop themes and patterns. The same, it can be done with videos and also with audio recording, not only just with words, spoken words. Observation involves going to watch people, how they behave. For example, if you want to see how people protest in the streets, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America. So you would go out like a journalist would go out and you record what people say, what people do, and then you try as much as possible to be neutral, although it's difficult, but you try to record and just write down the words that they actually said without you judging them as being good or bad. Uh, the duty of a researcher is to uh, get the exact wordings of the people whom they heard the speeches or their discourses, the spoken word. Interview oftentimes involve personalities, famous people, leaders, but also uh, people who have survived. For example, people who are leaving Gaza, they're forced to leave North Gaza to go to South Gaza, and journalists will interview them, what happened to you? And they will say, 8 of my family members have perished. I'm the only survivor. Or there will be 2 kids, and they will interview them to find out and what happened or what's going on. Or you can also interview the leaders of Israel, which they do. Okay, either the members of the parliament, Knesset, the uh, the Labor Party, the Conservative Party, or the Orthodox uh, rabbis, and what are their views in the common people. That's one way to get the feel of the people who are involved in a given phenomenon, which is being done right now in conflict situation, which is not often done in the case of Ukraine, but in Gaza, we see a lot of news, not the mainstream news, but from alternative news sources like in social media. And secondary sources would be existing documents like annual reports of companies, of Tata or of IBM or Microsoft, and then you just go and check what they say, or the number of births and deaths, infant mortality, uh, economic growth. So these are the figures you can look at. For example, if you're doing a longitudinal study of economic growth of India, then you would go over the records over 30 years and look for trends. And questionnaire could be done in both qualitative and quantitative research, and also in mixed methods. And quantitative research questionnaires are structured, like you have fixed questions which will correspond directly to the hypotheses of your research. Whereas in qualitative research, they tend to be semi-structured or open-ended because there's more room to explore. Unlike in quantitative research, it's more fixed than in uh, qual- uh, qualitative research. And focus group is the advantage of focus group. It's like interview, but you get 5 people at the same time. The advantage is you save time. Instead of 1 hour per person, that's 5 hours, you get 5 of them in 1 hour. And another advantage is they cross-check each other's answers. The negative aspect, though, is there tends to be herd instinct. If one person with strong personality says, no, 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 that's wrong, and everybody follows that person. So there are both positive and negative in doing focus group, depending on the personalities. So it's very subjective, more so than when you do one-on-one. But there's also known as test effect or the Hawthorne effect. When you ask people, they know you want a certain answer, they would tend to give you the answers you want to hear. So that's another problem in conducting research, whatever way, observation, interview, or questionnaire or focus group, or even survey. People will tend to give you the answer you want them to give you. That's why it's important when you do surveys and then also interview, tell them this is anonymous, it's confidential, no one will know you were the one who said this. And you have to keep their confidence. You have to honor the agreement that you have with them. That's part of the ethics of research. Okay, so there are differences. Methodology is the bigger framework, the overall view the philosophy. Research design is the structure of your research, the details of what you want to do. And research method is the practical techniques and procedures that you will do. Okay. And to select a research design, it should be based on your research question, gaps in type of data you will use. For example, if you want to find out how effective are the vaccines and do we need to develop a new vaccine, then it has to be quantitative. It has to be experimental. It cannot be, oh, I feel this vaccine works. It does not work that way. Everything should be linked coherently. And if you want to find out how one set of employees feel in a given factory, then that could be qualitative, not quantitative, because you want to find out how each employee, let's say in a gig economy, contractual or who are paid for delivering food, but with no contract, no healthcare, anything, then it has to be qualitative. So your research design depends on your research question or your hypothesis. So if you want to find out, can we have used turmeric, the curcumin, as anti-cancer, as antioxidant, then it has to be quantitative. You have to do a quantitative experimental test. Okay? You cannot just say, oh, I feel it's good. Then it's only opinion. If you say turmeric is good because I say it's good, it doesn't work that way. No one would believe you. Okay. So, so these are some things you have to consider. And for example, when you do experimental design, you will manipulate the independent variable, the dependent variable, or the cause and the effect. And in marketing, you can do experiments, for example, to check if the pricing strategy works or not. If you want to compete, let's say the production of coconut juice vis-a-vis mango juice, you would lower the price of coconut juice or coconut water as a refreshment drink, cold drink, and you see if it works or not. Then you play around with the pricing. And if the lower price works, then maybe you'll keep it forever. Or maybe once you get the market, you will now start increasing the price of coconut juice. Okay? And then in operations research, you experiment with changes in processes in the factory to see if you remove one person or add one person in the assembly line, will the production go faster or not? When you produce an iPhone, for example, instead of one person putting the one plastic part, make it two persons, because one person has to flip the plastic part to make sure it's the right position, and then the other person just stick it to the iPhone. If that works well and you will produce more iPhones, then maybe it pays to have one additional worker in the factory. That's in operations research. Okay? In quasi-experimental design, you cannot do random research because you're dealing with human beings. You cannot play with them. Let's say, like you can do with medicine, you can experiment if one medicine works with 30,000 people or not. You cannot do that in an office place. So you just give training methods. Let's say you give training on how to use one accounting software program to one group of employees, and then another set of people will undergo using a different software for accounting purposes. And then you compare, does this training for this type of usage of this software works best in the efficiency of the workers in their accounting work or not? Or you switch around again. You let the two groups change places, and one learn the other type of accounting software, and the other group learns the other Group's type of accounting software and check the efficiency and the performance of the employee. So that's quasi-experiment because you're dealing with real situation of real people. You cannot mess around with so many experiments, only like 2 or 3 times. Okay, so that will be quasi-experimental design. In research, in survey research, for quantitative research, it is highly structured. Both the questionnaire in the survey or in the interview, which will follow, or sometimes you do a series of 100 people or 1,000 persons to interview, which is being done in the US, like for Gallup polls and the Pew research. Those are the two major survey groups in the US, the Gallup and the Pew Research Center. So they are highly structured, and the questions they ask are very clear. Do you feel that there's corruption in your country? That's the Transparency and Corruption Index in the world. So they ask people, like 1,000 people or 2,000 per country across the country, randomized interview, and they come up with the results. So people say, yeah, no, what degree, and they come up with the figures for the Transparency Index. For market research, they would do survey. Sometimes they would say, take this survey online for a chance to win one bottle of Coca-Cola, for example. So people will be thrilled to take part in the survey. And they say it will only take 30 seconds. Or if you go for online shopping, they say you will win points. You will get discount of 28 or 200 rupees or something. So you will do the survey and they would see to what extent you're satisfied with the delivery, with the product, and so on and so forth. Okay. You can also do that for human resource management. Are employees satisfied with their job, and to what extent are they engaged in the company in their activities? For case study, again, this is one case. You can do multiple cases, but for Harvard Business School, they look at leadership, for example, or company or a product. Okay, so many textbooks are based on the Harvard Business Case Study Journal. For example, the pricing of a pair of shoes, Nike, Adidas, all of those, it costs just $9 to produce, but they sell them for 200, 250 US dollars. Why? Because people think the more expensive it is, the better it is. So I learned about this when I was helping students in the US with their homework, undergraduate, college students in marketing and in business management. So I was shocked to learn that price of a pair of US or German made shoes is just $9, but they sell them at highway robbery prices. And then they pay actors or actresses to patronize the products for advertising. So the money goes elsewhere, not to the actual factory workers, but it works. So that's the case study approach or the management style. I taught assistant and associate vice presidents of Deutsche Bank, business, the Harvard business method. And one case study I used was managing your manager. Okay, so the cases used were the following. One manager is very organized and he tells his employees what he expects, the output and the outcome at a given time. One other manager does not know what to do. He just say, okay, you want to do something, just do it. And another manager always just has a spur of the moment way of telling people, do this right now. And they're about to go home and they have a child to pick up in school and they have to go to the market to get some vegetables so they can cook before going home. But the manager just says, I need you to do this now because I need it tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning. So The one case study showed that you can manage your manager by approaching your manager and saying, what do we need to do this week? You are the one asking the question, and the manager tells you, and you say which ones are the most important ones that has to be done immediately. Then if the manager, this has to be done by tomorrow, that one later during the week, and another one is it doesn't matter when, but you have to do it. Then you are managing your manager by asking the question, and you write down what are your tasks, and then you know when you need to do what. So that was the best lesson, which was learned, and then they're teaching that to the associate and assistant vice presidents of Deutsche Bank, that sometimes you have to manage your manager by asking questions because the manager might have so many things to do. You better take the initiative and ask. So that's an example of the effectiveness of case study. Just one case is enough for you to learn lesson. It does not mean it's generalizable, but you can learn lesson from the case study. Oftentimes we think the more cases we have, thousands of cases, hundreds of thousands, the better. But it's not true for human interaction. One case is enough for the Harvard Business School, for example. Okay. Ethnography as a research design. You have to be embedded. For example, I gave you earlier, you have the young hipster who is in school or is out of school, but has a very unique fashion sense. So the corporate fast fashion companies will come and interview and ask questions and visit the house and check their closet, their wardrobe, and find out what makes this person a hipster and has a good fashion sense. So this is ethnographic. You go deep and learn about the culture of this young person, why this person is so fashionable without the existing fashion sense, but very new, from whom you can learn and to create new lines of production that you can share with the rest of the world. So it's used in business, it's used in anthropology if you're studying villages, and sociology if you're studying business culture. So it can be used all over the place. Okay. And you want to see, for example, that's how we learned that in the Japanese and Korean culture in Hong Kong, you're expected to work until 10 o'clock at night with no overtime pay, and that's normal. Okay, you do not go home before your boss goes home. Whether you have family obligations or you have to cook, it does not matter. That's the Japanese, Korean, and also the Hong Kong culture. You go home late and there's no overtime pay. Whereas in Japan, you have to go out and drink with your boss. Okay? Whereas in the US, the culture is direct. Wrong is wrong, right is right. If I say deadlines today before 5 o'clock, I mean it before 5 o'clock, and you have to finish your work today. Okay. And in other cultures, being late is okay. They expect you will be late, and you just give 101 reasons why you're late, and people know you're lying, but it's part of the culture. So that is ethnographic research. That's why there are some authors who are able to classify the masculine culture, the feminine culture, the Asian culture, based on thousands and thousands of studies. And for example, this is a study that they did for IBM because it's a big company with employees from all over the world. And they found out that the employees behave differently depending on where they come from, their cultural differences in business behavior. Okay, so that's from ethnographic research. Okay. All in all, if you have one slide to show the differences of research methodologies, research designs, and research method, this is it. Okay, you have these research methodology, quali, quanti, mixed method, and then research design, case study, long-term, one point in time, and experimental, and research methodology methods. You have ethnographic, content analysis, observation, interviews, document search, surveys, focus group discussion. So these are all of them. Okay, so to compare, What's the purpose in doing qualitative research? They say, how come this thing happened? But in quantitative, you say, how many times have you conducted research to test how effective the vaccine of Pfizer is? And to how many patients? You did it 3 times to 30,000 patients each time. And how effective was it? 38, 98%, 62%, 77% efficacy. So they do all of those tests and so on for quantitative. For quantitative, the best way to do it is to test hypothesis or theory. Whereas for qualitative, you are not testing hypothesis or theory. Theory is in fact not necessary in qualitative research. It helps, but it's not required. Rather, you start from the data, and oftentimes you develop or a grounded theory, or a grounded theory emerges. In quantitative research, numbers are very important. In qualitative research, it's artifacts, words, and symbols. Okay? And then for data collection or research methods, quantitative is measuring and testing big data. How many women, let's say out of 30,000, how many percentage of women have college degrees? And how many men, let's say there are 30,000 also, have college degrees? So you measure, and then you test metadata. Does having higher education lead to higher salary? Then you test for men and you test for women. Then you would say yes, to a certain extent. But for some other reasons, for example, women do not get the same salaries as men. So there is a gender bias. After testing 30,000 pieces of information. But for qualitative research, you observe how people behave in a company, in a school, in a factory, and so on and so forth. And for data analysis, in quantitative, you do statistical analysis. For qualitative, you do manual grouping of data or use software. Topic selection. Okay? There are many factors, but I'll just cite a few of them here and other slides too. One, are you interested? If you're not, then it's going to be a boring work for you until the research is done. Let's say you're publishing an article, you'll be so bored to death if you're not interested. Or if you're doing a doctoral work or master's work, you were told to do this by your professor, but you don't like it, then you will suffer throughout your research. Okay? And two, can it be done? If you say, I want to prove that there is water in Jupiter, that's not feasible. Like, who are you? One person. Can you have all of the funding, resources to go to have all of those special equipment to see, to measure using infrared or all kinds of instrumentation, or to even fly over? Then that's not relevant. It's not feasible. And relevant, who cares? Do we care if there's water in Jupiter or not? Maybe we do, but can you do it? So these are things you have to look into. And then, for example, in getting supply chain, we want to produce, let's say, sari or some clothes. We want to say we don't want to use chemical products like cloth using chemical colors. Rather, you want to use organic colors. So you will try to investigate sustainable sources of natural dyes. So that is a good topic because that's something we're looking for in the present time. And then there's so many startups in the world now. So for entrepreneurship, you want to check, how do people succeed? When you have a TikTok account or an Instagram account or Facebook account, people make money. You want to know how people succeed and why they succeed. So those are important things for entrepreneurship. Other factors are, this is basic in business. Your goal should be smart, very specific. You don't say, I want to see if there's water in Jupiter, but sure, it's specific, but can you do it? It's not achievable. So you fail in the A test because you're just one person wanting to do this research. And then, is it measurable? If you use the word like resilience, I want to check how migrant workers are resilient. That word is not measurable as it is. Or trauma, like people have traumatic experience. It will not really succeed because it's floating up in the air. There will be a lot of questions until you are able to measure it. And realistic. And do you have access to people you want to interview? For example, can you actually go check those young hipsters and you want to know the new trend that they're creating? Are you able to go to their houses, check their wardrobe and how they dress up at school, at home, and the shopping mall? If it can be done, fine. Okay. Or you want to check if the employees are satisfied in the Tata car manufacturing uh, factory. Can you do it? Do you have connections? If you have connections, that's excellent. If you don't, then forget that project because it will be hard for you to have access to a Tata car manufacturing factory plant. Okay. And timely, is there a need for this? So major concerns now are the new economic system in the world. Does the old economic system work like with the major Western powers? Or going BRICS, is it a good way of going forward? Or is it good to have close relations with all countries, with France, with BRICS, with the US, with Europe? Okay, so that's one very timely topic. Okay, so you have to look at what are the needs of the environment. Okay, looking for sustainable, alternative, renewable energy would be another one. Then the concerns of migrant workers would be another, because there are many migrant workers from Asia and Africa working in the Middle East, for example, and then with no security, especially if there's armed conflict or war, like right now, people who are working in Israel have to run and go back to their home countries. Or during the COVID period, a lot of migrant workers have to go back home or get stuck there and have no income. So those are the big timely topics. And right now, one major topic is the blockchain, the cryptocurrency. So that's another big topic. The Bitcoin. Okay, so for people who are investing. So these are some issues which are timely. So you have to consider your research to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay. So one, you must be genuinely interested in the research. If you're not personally invested in it, you will not be able to produce a good product. Okay. So for marketing, let's say if you are a young person who wants to make money, you want to see what are the social media trends and how do these young people earn millions of dollars by just having a platform with Spotify. They just put up music, not even professionally made. They just sing in a cell phone recorder and then they upload and people buy. You have people who are really doing well that way, or in Instagram, or in TikTok, or in Facebook and Twitter. So you want to learn that that's one area you can do research. Uh, and some people are sharing their knowledge of how you can make money through social media, and it's easy money. They call it passive income. You just put up a video and people watch it, listen to your music, and you get money by doing nothing except uploading some video or music or clips or photos in the cloud, the electronic digital cloud, and you can make money. So that's one. And in finance, ethical finance, because there's a lot of corruption going on with all of the wars, for example, in Ukraine, in Gaza Strip, while people are suffering. some people are corrupt and earning money from the war. So you want to do research on that aspect, you can do if that's your interest. And then you have to look at the importance. Is that topic relevant today? For example, in human resources, you have many people now after the pandemic continue to work remotely. Okay? I just came from a meeting in Bangkok where it is a project of Finland, and the head of this project, the coordinator, is based in the Philippines. She's from Finland, and her staff, uh, some are based in Bangkok, but some are based in Nepal. And the American is based in Bangkok. The Thai staff, who's the finance officer, is working in Bangkok. The Nepali uh, uh, accountant is working in Nepal, and one accountant from Nepal is working in Bangkok. So it's still going on today, even after the pandemic is over. So this is one area of research. So what should be the policies for remote work nowadays? Okay, so that meeting had people, all of them come to this physical gathering because they said it's about time we can meet one week for a meeting, and then you can go back home. We can still continue working from our home. And third one here is feasibility. If you have a paper that you're writing and it has to be submitted, let's say in a month's time, make sure your paper can be finished in 1 month's time. Or if you're writing for a doctorate degree or a master's degree, make sure it can be finished in time. And number four is originality. How original is your research? If it is original, then it will be great. If it's not worth doing the research that other people have already done. You're just repeating. It's like an encyclopedic entry. It's not unique. Okay. And social impact is another one. You have to address to real world concern. And what are the new terms? E-commerce, for example. And you must be able to uh, provide new knowledge. That's number 11, like new workplace well-being intervention. Some companies now, like all of the social media companies, have massage room, have free lunch. You can have all kinds of food from all over the world. And then they have ping pong table, free laundry. And that makes the employees work better. And they can measure the degree to which the employees work better. And then that's for the new topic. And for mature topic, then you can say maybe there are unexplored areas in marketing that we can explore. Okay. So when you look at the statement of the problem, you have to look at uh, okay, what are the problems that you can see? There are two levels. One is social problem, the real world problem. The second is the lack of the theory or conceptual development. So you have to address both real world problem and theoretical problem. So those are the concerns you have to look at in doing your problem statement. And then when you look at the social issue like poverty, healthcare problem, environmental concern, so those are great things to look at. For theories, you have to look at the gap. What aspects of theories have not been developed well? Okay, so you want to solve real world problem and you want to advance academic knowledge also. Okay. Research gap. Uh, when you start a research, you have to read a lot and you will find out that there are different kinds of gaps. One is maybe we don't have enough evidence that certain thing had happened, or we say that let's say ginger and garlic are good for the health. But there's contrary evidence that, for example, this is hypothetical, that some people get stomach ache and headache when they get certain amount of garlic and ginger. So it's not really good. So you want to get better evidence, then that's a gap you have to fill. Or knowledge gap. You don't know if ashwagandha is a good thing or not for human health. So you want to check if ashwagandha can have good effect on human beings. Or some people have conducted research on the usefulness of honey for overall human health. But some people did the research in a laboratory by feeding mice and checking if there's an effect on the mice. Are they healthier or did they become too fat, too thin? Did they have diarrhea? But you'll do another research methodology. Instead of testing on rats, you will ask 10 human beings to take a certain amount of honey. Okay. And then for population gap is you find out that a lot of studies are being done on the leadership qualities of CEOs. But you found out that it's mostly white men. They have not studied African women or African men. Then you want to do research that will have another population that will look at African men or Asian women or African women and Asian men, not only white men. Okay, practical knowledge would be usefulness in society, like does a natural cotton cloth clean the table better with plain water, or the synthetic polyester cloth clean the table better using also water? So that's for everyday use, practical knowledge. And theoretical knowledge is, for example, one theory says that economic income leads to democracy. Another theory says democracy leads to economic growth. So you want to check which is the cause and which is the effect. Okay. So these are the things you have to look at in research gaps, 7 of them. And research purpose, usually for qualitative research, you have one general research purpose and maybe minimal of 2 research questions, and they must correspond to 2 research objectives. What are the factors? How do people, the manners in which? They should correspond one-to-one. And why do people, then give the reasons for which this thing happened. So the 3 of these go together: purpose, research question, and objective. But in quantitative research, those are optional. What's required, it depends again on the university or on the journal. Some require research question, some don't. Some require objective, some don't. But hypothesis is required for quantitative research. You have null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So in general, when you do your research, it has to be, keep it simple and sweet. Okay. Don't be abstract. Everything should be measurable, specific. The words to avoid: trauma, resilience, big words. Like, what are they? If you cannot see that, then it's an abstract term. Okay. So questions have to be clear. And data collection methods. Here are the major research methods, sometimes called data collection methods, sometimes called data gathering methods. Interviews, focus group, participant observation, content analysis, case study, ethnography, narrative analysis. And some also can take place in quantitative, like interview, but you have structured questions for quantitative and semi-structured or unstructured for qualitative research. And mixed method, you combine the 2. Okay, so these are for data analysis. In qualitative research, it's called the findings. In quantitative research, you call it results. And data interpretation would be the discussion and the data visualization. Okay. The quantitative data analysis, there are all kinds, from ANOVA to regression. Qualitative data analysis, you have all kinds, from action research analysis to thematic analysis. And then you do coding in your research. Mixed method, you also combine. In a word, validity looks at the accuracy. Like, can you hit the target or around the target area? Reliability is, do you always hit the target area or around the target area, to use it in plain terms? And you have validity. In qualitative terms, you have to use different methods, combine them. It's called triangulation, using different sources. In quantitative research, the vocabulary would be internal validity, external validity, construct validity. But in a mixed method, you use a quantitative vocabulary too. Reliability is a vocabulary for quantitative research, but for qualitative research, you use the term dependability, and you must do member check for qualitative research. Ask the people about whom you did your research. Is your writing reflective of what they actually said? Okay. Trustworthiness does not apply to quantitative. It's qualitative. You want to make sure everything is related in your research. Due to lack of time, I will not give examples. And the vocabulary is different in qualitative from quantitative. Credibility for qualitative, for validity. Dependability for qualitative, it's about reliability. And transferability for qualitative, it's generalizability in quantitative. And then confirmability in qualitative, and its consistency in quantitative. They mean the same thing, but since one is more precise than the other, then the vocabulary cannot be the same. To show coherence, I'm ending with this. If you have a title, impact of X and on Y, then what are the social problems, let's say? Then you say there are 4 causes, 4 effects, and then 4 things to be done, your recommendation. So they should be coherent from beginning to the end. Another way to put it is like this too. You're looking at the challenges and opportunities in this keywords, 5 of them. You have 1 purpose. Then you have challenges, research question 1, everything you explore. Then opportunities, research question 2, you explore everything. Okay. And I end with this. I have an evaluation rubric. When I do review, I'm in fact in the middle of reviewing 1 paper in a journal, and deadline is 20 October. And I check on all of these and I give scores on how they do and whether it's good or publishable, or I need to see it or not, or whether I have to see it again for publication or not. Thank you very much.